if you spend any time searching on the internet trying to find some help on what size compressor do I need, particularly if you're going to spray paint or something, you're going to come across, a lot of opinions and some good information, some questionable information. But you're going to find there's a typical guideline that says, hey, your compressor needs to put out, 150% of the CFM of your highest demand tool. And so just as an example, if you're using a typical HVLP paint gun, which they tip, about 12 CFM, well, 150% of that is 18 CFM. And as you go looking for that compressor, what you're going to find is that's a really big compressor, and it'll be super hard to find one that will be reasonably fit into a home, garage, or shop. It's going to have a huge power demand, and it's going to be a big unit. The good news is you may not need that. That gives you all kinds of headroom and margin, and that'll absolutely work. But you can get excellent results with a smaller compressor as long as you understand the constraints and you're willing to work around them just a little bit. So I developed this tool to help articulate exactly what it is you're doing, and then suggest some example compressors that will do exactly what you need and maybe not be quite that big or expensive. So here's the webpage, and it's the DIY Garage Home Shop Compressor Sizing Tool. And there's just some questions that the tool asks. Hey, what are you using the compressor for? Select all that applies. I am gonna be painting with a spray gun. I'm gonna use some air tools, DA. I'm gonna do a little media blasting. And then here's the next question, and this is critical, right? How long is your typical work session before you pause? Because that whole 150% of the highest demand tool, kind of assumes, hey, you're holding the tool wide open 100% of the time, but nobody works that way. Even if with media blasting, right? We spray, we stop, we spray, we stop. So, and then, we don't work for 10 hours straight. So how long? I'm going to select, hey, 10 to 15 minutes. Maybe I'm painting one panel or media blasting one panel, 10 to 15 minutes, and then I stop, organize stuff, whatever. And then how long do you typically stay on the trigger, right? Again, it's not 100% of the time. Sometimes, depending on what you're doing, it's burst 25%. Typical is around 50%. Really heavy use is 75. So let's say typical use, about 50% trigger time, which would be totally normal for spray painting, right? And then if you're painting, what kind of gun are you using? That's typical HVLP. What air tools? Let's say we're going to use some typical DA stuff, media blasting. Let's just say for this demonstration, hey, it's a small siphon gun. The little thing I got at Harbor Freight, a couple gallons of media, siphons it out of there. Okay. So now this is important. What electrical power do you have available? Reasonably available, realistically available in your shop. If you don't have 240. Maybe there'll be a compressor that would use 110. And for 110, it'd be like a shared circuit. There's a freezer out there or something like that. Or a dedicated circuit, which is typically 20 amps. So let's say a dedicated 115. If you got 240, great, check that. Right. And then what scenario best fits how you want to work? And say, hey, I'm okay with working around the compressor. Maybe I spend less, get a smaller unit, and I can wait for it to recover as long as it does what I need. Or it's like, hey, I don't want the system to slow me down. But let's say I'm willing to work around it. Okay, now the tool comes back with some suggestions. And it says, hey, here is a unit, a DeWalt 115 volt unit with a tank of 27 gallons. It has a CFM output at 90 psi at 5.1, and it runs at 200 psi. So that is giving you more stored air volume, right? At 200 psi, there's a lot of air in a 27-gallon tank. Now, if you were to click down or click up to a lower model, it's going to say, hey, this Craftsman unit won't do what you want. And if you go, well, I would like a little margin, right? You can click down and go, oh, here's this other DeWalt with a 30-gallon tank, or here's this one, the California Air Tools takes 230. You said you only have 115. So right here, there's about two two machines that would meet your need. And if you want to go take a look at them, you can click here. It's going to take you over to Amazon, and it's going to here's the machine, right? So that's how the tool is designed to be used. And then there's a summary. It says, hey, this compressor will meet your requirements. It'll work, right? And it'll give you about 40.9 minutes of working time. It'll recover in about 7.2 minutes. So when you stop, you let go of the trigger, it will fully recharge in 7 minutes. So in terms of what we put in here, of what we're trying to accomplish, and maybe some of the constraints we're willing to work with, this tool would do the job, this tool or this tool. All right. And then you can reset the form and start over. And then there's a write-up down here that explains how that all works. So hope you find that helpful, and go check it out. And yeah, of course, you don't have to buy this machine, but what it does is give you some specs, right, to work with. So again, hope that's helpful. All right. Thanks.